Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter, and today on the show, we are back in Vegas for UFC Fight Night, Cannonier against Robocop. And Gregory Robocop Rodrigues, somebody that's been kind of deserving this step up in competition, 6-2 now in the promotion. The guy's done an excellent job in terms of proving his skills, but now huge step up in competition against Jared Cannonier, almost 40 some odd years of age, gonna have to go out there and defend his spot atop the rankings. Let's see how he can do taking on this younger challenge. It should be awesome. And the ever controversial Mr. Just Win Baby back in the building. How are you, my man, Rich?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing good, bro. It's been an amazing week. Last card was fire. I didn't hit on Suarez. Obviously, I got that wrong. Wiley was my mush, my bad. But I was happy to see her win, Wiley. I felt bad about the mush, to be honest, because she is a nice person. Like, you can't say anything bad about her. But yeah, I still profited. I faded Juicette with the Aussie guy. Had a couple of things that hit, so I was still profitable. So that's good. I had an appearance on Wager Wars. I won that, so that was satisfying. It's good to be part of the community and to pit my wits against the rest of them. So yeah, looking forward to this card as well. Looking to keep the W's rolling, man. Cool card.
I gotta say, celebrate the wins, own the losses. Last week, I tried to figure out the way to not get caught in the mush, right? And when I say the mush, the way I define mush, we all have a different way, right? And I know you have your way. But when I see a line just get absolutely smashed, it always makes me feel a little bit uneasy because I knew the sharp money was on Suarez at plus 120, plus 140, plus 150, like all the way down. I knew that was sharp money. But at a certain point, I was like, I can't imagine there's many sharps out there laying minus 142, minus 160, and the number just kept moving. And you were like, okay, that's probably not going to end well. That just seemed like there was a flood of public money that came in on the Suarez side. And so I had taken the fight not to go to decision. I was like, either we're going to see Suarez go out there and get the patented guillotine choke, or she's going to gas out and get finished. And she managed to do everything but. I was like, wow, what a fight in terms of handicapping, because I tried to get cute to avoid the result where, I had a strong suspicion it would be Suarez. But my backup plan, I was like, if she doesn't get it, she's going to get finished. And she found a way to limp her way to the decision. So Tatiana Suarez, we wish her nothing but the best, but doesn't seem like she's got it right now at the title level. We'll see what's next for Zhang Weili. I imagine it's at 125 pounds. But right back to work for this week. And we start, as always, at the bottom of the card. I have to imagine this bout order is, going to change, because right now we've got some complete shit cans, with all due respect, on the main card, and we've got some guys that have really earned their spot in the UFC listed as the first fight of the night. But in any case, Gabriel Bonfim, somebody that we both faded with Nicholas Dalby, is back in the driver's seat after getting a win over Ange Loosa. He's taking on Chaos Williams, a short notice replacement. Not that short notice. I think he's had a little over a month here, but he was supposed to take on Rinat Fakhretdinov, and instead Rinat has ducked the fade. I'm kidding. But in any case, now Chaos Williams is in the fray. What do you think about this one, Rich?
Yeah, it's a cool matchup, man. Bonfim will always have a place in my heart for that performance against Dalby. That was probably the most exciting fight I've ever seen. I had Bonfim as the mush. Dalby was like the plus 300 underdog. He was getting his ass whooped in round one. But, to come back, like just the emotions in that fight, man, it was crazy. Screaming at the TV, fucking finish him. I had 10-1 on the KO and the rest of it. So always got love for Bonfim for that. I think he wins, man. I don't like Williams on short notice. Like you said, it's not that short. He's had like a month or so. I don't like the fact that he's won 3 bonuses. I think it takes away motivation from some people, and I think he's the type of person to take the motivation away from. He's an extroverted guy. He likes to buy his clothes, his chains and stuff. When you hear him talking, he's into real estate now, investing some of that money. And I don't know, I just think when you've got outside endeavors and you're fighting once a year like he is, it kind of takes your motivation away from training and the rest of it when you've kind of like made bank. We've seen it before with Kevin Holland when he made the money against Chimaev, just went on a total fucking downfall. In terms of the fight, I think he's been like regressing a little bit as well. He came in hot in the UFC chaos, but some of his performances of late haven't been good. I don't think he won that fight against Bedoya. I think he lost, and he was fortunate that it was Cleary and Bell as the judges that night. They gave him the W in the split decision. And yeah, he does like this punch, cage push where he wastes time, tries to burn down the clock. I've seen him do that many times. And when he does that, he kind of dips his head a little bit. He did it against Randy Brown. If Brown was a bit more switched on, he could have gone for the guillotine. You know, he had the metric advantage in that fight, but he didn't see the opportunity. He nearly got subbed by Maize as well in a heel hook and then a transition to the knee bar. So I think Bonfim is live for his decision. We know that's his win equity. He likes to throw heat on the feet as well. He's gone 3 rounds now, and it was in Colorado as well against Lusa. So, you know, I think these fights where he lost to Dalby, the 3 rounds against Lusa, these are good experiences for somebody like him who was a front runner. You know, he was going out there to kill in round 1 like he did against Dalby, and I think he's learning his lessons. So he's going to be more measured. And yeah, I think he's the side here. I can understand people trying to take the dog money on Williams, but it ain't for me, man. I like Bonfim. I'm not sure how I'm going to attack it, whether I'm going to hit the sub or not. It depends on the number, but Bonfim's my pick, man. And that was much more detailed and precise by me. I think I'm turning a corner rather than Williams is shit. Fade him.
Well, I like that. I like that. We've got some analysis from Rich on this one. And, you know, I have to do my tape study on this fight before I can give you guys, you know, a stone cold analysis. But I have to say my gut instinct is that the line is a little bit wide on Chaos Williams. Why would I say so? Number one, guy's got a pretty proven track record as an underdog. You look at him in the UFC, plus 355 against Alex Morono, shadow realmed him in 27 seconds. Plus 190 against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, shadow realmed him in 30 seconds. If you throw a naked low kick against this guy, he throws a counter right hand, puts you in the box. It's like he did that to a couple guys to start a UFC career and put his name on the map. Then he goes out there and he had a couple fights. I think it was the Baeza fight, plus 140, knockout in round 3. So, you know, now we look at Baeza and we say his chin's gone and all these things, but it's like, yeah, his chin got taken away from him by a bunch of guys in a row. And if you watch those fights, brutal stuff. The guy was in a bunch of wars before his career, you know, kind of, you know, was lost. So I look at a guy like Chaos Williams. He's never really gotten respect at the betting window. And when he did, you know, against Randy Brown, it was minus 104, you know, pick 'em type of price, split decision, kind of played out close. Like the guy has been in a lot of close fights. You look at both of his losses, they're fringe ranked guys. You know, Michel Demolador Pereira in and out of the rankings at 185 pounds. Randy Brown, guy who's been a fringe ranked guy at, you know, 170. So I just look at Chaos Williams as, is he the best fighter you've ever seen? No, but athletic intangibles, they're there. The one thing I worry about is the jiu-jitsu. To your point, Rich, we haven't really seen that tested too much. When we have seen it, we've definitely seen some, you know, instincts that weren't perfect. But the guy is probably the best Murcielago MMA product we've ever seen. Like if you just look at what he's produced so far inside the octagon, and then if you look besides that, I mean, obviously Jamal Hill got to a championship level fight, but 205 is a little different than 170 with all due respect. And then you look at a guy like Chaos. He's gotten some work with Justin Gaethje. He's gotten some work with Rafa Garcia. He's kind of gone around and gotten to different gyms and gotten some different looks. I think that's important for a guy, you know, 30 years of age, got a pretty decent record in the UFC. Time to go right now. And he's coming off of a big knockout win. Price is an underdog once again. For me, it's a dog or pass situation at these odds, just because if Nicholas Dalby can walk you down and break you with strikes, I don't know what it's going to look like if Chaos Williams hits you 2-3 good times, because Chaos Williams plays for keeps, man. He's trying to put people in the hospital. You know, there's some guys that are like, you know, if they get an opportunity, they knock you down, they're going to look for the sub. They're going to do something merciful. Dude, Chaos Williams trying to put you on the highlight reel and move on. Get that $50,000, go buy some new real estate and ride off into the sunset. So I think this should be a fun fight. I do think finish more likely than not. But the other thing I want to point out before we move to the next fight, you look at Chaos Williams, the underdog in this fight. He's priced as more likely to win the fight by knockout. He's only 6-1 to win this fight by decision. So it's like, if the fight goes to the cards, they think it's probably going to be a close enough fight. It's like, if it ends inside the distance, they think it's more likely the KO comes for Williams. They think it's more likely the sub comes for Bonfim. Sounds to me like a close fight. line should probably reflect that a little bit more. But again, that's my interpretation. And he's got a 5-inch reach advantage approximately in this spot. I think that could pay dividends for him at distance. But if he closes the range, we know that the first round submission threat of Bonfim is nothing to play with. And he could absolutely put another one together against our guy, Chaos Williams. So let's see what Chaos has in store. Next up, or do you have something to add there, Rich?
Nah, I guess I'd say that the Dalby fight and this fight aren't really comparable for Bonfim. Like, just the way that they fight Williams and Dalby, it's just completely different. The way they get back up from takedowns, the cardio, the rest of it. So yeah, I wouldn't say they're really comparable for Bonfim.
Fair play. I just meant if you break against those strikes, I just feel like Chaos Williams, the way he hits people, I don't know if he's going to want to take those, but
I'd say that in that fight, Bonfim and Dalby, it was a case of, it was in Brazil. You know, there was a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Before that, he had just fought at the Apex, I believe. You know, it was his first real fight, Bonfim. I think the occasion got to him. And like I said, he was a front runner, thought he could do his regular thing and get Dalby out of there, and broke. But I think he's learned his lessons and he'd be more measured, man. It was more, he could have won that Dalby fight. It was more what Bonfim did wrong than what Dalby did right. Bonfim like played into his hands and just went full, you know what I'm saying? Full retard, and he shouldn't have.
Question. Do you think Chaos Williams would beat Angelusa?
Yeah.
I think so too. So that's the reason why I'm not sold on the Angelusa win. Like, I just think Angelusa is kind of a reactive fighter and a guy that is not really going to go like looking for the finish. You know what I mean? Like, he's a very decision-oriented fighter, and in this spot, also he time travels in every fight. I talk about that too much, but he really does. Like, if you look at him, he gets hit one time, starts looking off in the distance, you know, talking to somebody who's not there. So we can move to the next fight, man. We got Angela Overkill Hill, another 40-year-old. You know, we got a few of them on the card, taking on Ketlin Souza, and Ketlin Souza, just 29 years of age in this spot, coming off of a big win in her own right. You know, Yasmin Waregi just unfortunately been on the highlight reel for several women now in the UFC, and losing to Karine Silva with that nasty Z-lock or whatever that was on the ground. You know, it was a leg entanglement of some kind, blew her knee out. You know, I don't really hold that against her, right? Like, that's just tough sledding. You know, you fight somebody who's got really good jiu-jitsu your first fight, you know, not a great look though. Now I say to myself, you know, Angela Hill, probably the more skilled fighter. I think that if somebody was to come out and you know, look really good in an extended fight via decision, maybe that would be an Angela Hill. But I just I don't know if I could trust a 40-year-old right now. And when I say that Angela Hill has evaded death several times in the UFC, look at that Mackenzie Dern fight. I think I had 25-1 on the KO TKO prop. And now Mackenzie Dern, every fight is like 10-1 to win by KO TKO, because she almost killed Angela Hill like 50 times. She had her hurt. She dropped her. Then she's doing side headlocks, just things you couldn't believe if you were holding that ticket. But ultimately, Angela Hill was getting hurt really badly. Against Amanda Lemos, she got her head punted out of her skull and just somehow came back, right? Like, she has this dog in her, this willingness to keep fighting, bite down, find a way back into the fight. But at a certain point, I do wonder, you know, where that's going to end up. And she is 12-14 in the promotion. That's also hard to trust for me. You know, it's not like she's been doing that much better in a recent run of fights. What is it? In her last 1, 2, 3, 4, I got to get rid of this grappling match. 5, 6. So 4 and 5 in her last 9 fights in the UFC. It's just not a great resume. So why is it a pick 'em? A lot of people keep asking on Twitter. That's probably the reason why. You know, it's just it's hard to trust Angela right now, despite her skills, despite how good she looks. Cardio's a bit inconsistent. I think she works really hard, but I think if you make her work or if you hurt her, her cardio kind of drops off a cliff. So for me, this is not a fight I feel very keen on betting, but I understand why the line has come in on Ketlin Souza. Violent young Brazilian woman. How often do we see these younger Brazilian women just make huge improvements fight to fight? But if you look back and compare it, you know, a Denise Gomes, somebody that is a prospect in my view, that was making some improvements, she just got audited when she fought Angela Hill. She didn't have the same skills that Angela had, and she kind of got exposed for that. So I think the same thing could happen here. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, I like the 40-year-old, man, and I like her a lot. I put one of my baby units on her, one of my $50 units on her at like minus 125. And I was telling people I expect this to go out to minus 200. So I was like, what the fuck, when it went to minus 110? Still doesn't make sense to me. The only thing I can say is the line's driven by the fact that Souza got a knockout in her last fight. And yeah, I guess Hill being 40 and they see some regression in some of her fights. But I just ain't with it, man. I just think it's bullshit. Souza knocking out Yasmin doesn't mean shit to me. Yasmin's been chinny, and yeah, like I thought Yasmin would win that fight like the rest of us. I just think she got caught, man. She was too aggressive, like she is. Souza was patient, smart. She countered and she got her, and then she eventually got the submission thereafter. But outside of that, man, if Yasmin had done her thing, and this is Hill versus Souza, I think fucking we see Hill at like minus 250. So I think the line's only driven by recency bias. And that isn't enough for me, man. When I went and watched the tape, I watched the fight Souza against Man. She arguably lost that third round, man. She fucking got reversed on the mat. Man was going for a Kimura, and she was fucking defending frantically Souza. She's got no ground game. She's got no wrestling. That's going to be there all day for Hill. So you have to incorporate that. Hill's been doing Muay Thai for the longest time. She's got more experience. She's got more experience at 115. You know, this is only Souza's third fight. And the two fights, is it two fights or one fight that she's had at 115? But that ended early against Yasmin. So she hasn't really been extended, man. So nobody really knows what her cardio is going to be like. In the Man fight, her cardio was shit. You could tell that she was pacing herself, throwing low volume because she was scared of gassing. And she still gassed in round 3. Like if Man's almost stealing a round off you, I haven't gone and checked the scorecards. There's something up, man. Yeah, the line just doesn't make any sense. I'm going to have to put another unit on it also. I think Hill's going to sub her round 2, 3. I think she's going to break her. Cage presser, clinch, knees to the body, the rest of it. It's in the small cage at the apex as well. I think Souza's only chance of winning this fight is getting a knockout. And I think that would be fluke as well, because although Hill has been getting hit, she has been taking shots off Lemos and Dern. I think they're a different animal to somebody like Souza. You know, Dern goes full pelt from the get-go. She's got the takedown threat as well, which Hill has to worry about. So you could argue that. And then against Lemos, man, Lemos is one of the hard hitters for the women's division. So there's no shame in that. And she couldn't knock her out. So I like Hill. You know, she is 40. That is a concern, but she hasn't showed signs of slowing down. Her last fight against Ricci, you know, there's no shame on that. Ricci's on the up. She's being propelled by the UFC. It was just a bad stylistic matchup. She was able to hold her against the cage and push the grappling. Souza can't do that, man. I literally think she's a white belt. In every fight, she gets taken down. Don't know what her cardio is like. Etc., man. So yeah, I like Hill and I like her a lot.
Yeah, looking at Ketlin Souza, apparently she has some wrestling background, but it doesn't look very good in her fights. And she's also wearing a brown belt on her old social media post from 2024. So I don't know if she's a brown belt or a black belt, but she definitely has some jiu-jitsu experience. But again, it's what translates in the fight, right? You know, there's black belts and there's black belts. There's people that have really good skills that translate. And then there's Luana Pinheiro, who ended up getting submitted by Angela Hill. And I do think this is one that could go either way. I like that interesting point you made about the cardio of Ketlin Souza. I'll have to go back and tape that, because obviously the Marnik Man fight, you know, watching as many fights as I do, the ones that are really, really shitty and boring, you probably just delete those ones the fastest of them all. And I'd have to go back and rewatch that. Was not a very entertaining fight, but all things considered, I'm happy to pass on this fight. And if you like the Angela Hill side at a worse number, then I will probably wait and see what happens, because I do see a lot of steam coming the way of the younger Brazilian. And, maybe we get plus money on Angela Hill before all is said and done. I would not be surprised.
That would be crazy, man. And you're right, the Man and Souza fight was shit, but it is worth watching because it tells you a lot, man. Low volume,
for sure.
And she lost the third round.
We're just early in the week, so a lot of times I do, my tape study as the week goes on, but I'm writing my article early this week as well. Big wrestling weekend, so a lot of work to be done on and off the mats. In any case, we're on to the next fight. We got Rafael Esteban taking on Jesus Aguilar, and I do think that this is another interesting fight. I think I led off the last one, so why don't we have you lead this one off, Rich?
Yeah, I think Esteban should finish this fight. I like him to win. I think his cardio concerns that people are going to mention are a bit exaggerated. It was his debut against Johnson, I believe. He did well for the first 2 rounds, obviously had his way. 3rd round, he fell off a little bit, but there's no shame in that, man. There's no shame in that. He still pushed through as well. He was never in danger at any point. And I don't think Jesus is the type of guy to push the pace or finish him in round 3 either. So I just think round 1, he's going to take Jesus down. He's going to put the body triangle on, lock him down, probably get a submission, maybe ground and pound from top. If he doesn't, I don't think his cardio is compromised. And then same in round 2. Same old story, man. Jesus, guillotine, you got to watch out for it. He hit it in his last fight by being the big underdog and got the W. Good for him. He's at a severe metric disadvantage here. Esteban's got 4 inches of height, 7-inch reach. They both miss weight in their last bout, so it'd be interesting to see who makes weight, if either of them do. That's about it, man. I just think Esteban rolls in this position unless he gets subbed.
Yeah, Glenbot in the chat was asking about the fight ends by sub, and I don't think that's a bad look. Although I will say you're right that Esteban throws good ground and pound from the top position. I think that the MMA meta and even the grappling meta in a lot of ways right now, in terms of dominant top position grappling, anything that involves striking, you want to be able to float positions. You want to be able to take the back. You want to be able to get people hip down. And that's a lot of what Esteban does. If you go back and watch that Charles Johnson fight, I don't know that anybody has summarily out-grappled Charles Johnson like Esteban did for the first 8 minutes of that fight. So there's a lot of really good things from Esteban. However, he did not get the finish. Charles is a tough guy. Charles is a crafty guy. He's a clever guy. He was in some bad positions, but he was honestly never close to being subbed, in my humble opinion. Never even in a lock. I don't know that there was locked hands around a choke attempt or anything like that.
I don't think he can be subbed.
It would be very difficult. But point being, he was never in any real danger of being finished, but he did have to roll out of positions when the guy was trying to belly him down and get the ground and pound going, stuff like that. So my thought process here is the one thing I don't like about Charles' style is he very infrequently wrestles back into somebody. And if I know I could wrestle you for free with no threat of getting taken down in return, with no threat of ending up on my back, you on top of me, now I made a huge categorical mistake. If that's never a threat, I'll take as many takedown attempts as I want, And Charles doesn't wrestle back into people, and he doesn't do jiu-jitsu against guys that are wrestling really hard. He tries to hurt them. And again, not a problem, right? Sometimes that works out. Sometimes he gets the late finish. But it's that kind of style. If you run out of time, you run out of time. And when you look at that fight, he didn't have a front headlock game that he was going to and really trying to put this guy away, trying to make this guy pay for takedown attempts. I talked about it with Benoit Saint Denis and Dustin Poirier. Yeah, he had a staph infection. That's part of the reason he got tired. The other reason is he kept putting his head into guillotine choke attempts, right? Whether or not you pull back and go all the way to your guard, I start putting pressure on your neck. You start getting tired. You start panicking a little bit, and you want to get out of that position. You make a drastic movement. You have to spend some energy. And if I make you do it 5-8 times, you're going to be exhausted. So it's that is what you see as, Said Nurmagomedov. That's exactly what he did to Said Yakub Kakramanov, who was wrestling him into a hole, takedown, ground control. And as soon as he made one slip up, one mistake, head in the hole, thanks for playing, good night. That's it. It's like one time you mess up going for these takedown attempts on a good guillotine guy could be all she wrote. So I think Jesus Aguilar is live in like any fight because he's a tough guy. He stays in the fire and he looks to go for that guillotine even into the 5th round. I think Edgar Chairez, just got tracked down by him late in the fight in a fight he was doing well. So this guy just stays in it and looks for this choke. And I think that he's going to have opportunities. That's why I like the ends by sub. But do I think the better process grappler is Esteban? Yes, by a significant margin. It's just that if you get exhausted, it doesn't matter how good you are at process grappling. Adolfo Vieira got submitted with a front head choke by, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez because he was completely exhausted from a heavy wrestling and grappling pace. And when a guy like Jesus Aguilar, he's not the best grappler, but if he survives, if he's able to just hold on, cling, fight hands, roll through positions, I do think he comes out of 2 rounds of that a little bit fresher than Esteban, and that's what makes me a little concerned. So as far as I consider this fight, it would be the ends by sub, maybe Esteban sub or Esteban TKO if you're looking for something that might be priced a little bit more generously. However, I think that live, I'd be looking for a potential entry on Aguilar at the 8-minute mark. If you see that Esteban spent a lot of energy, hasn't gotten the finish, looks like he's starting to huff and puff again, if he missed weight again, these kind of things are what I'm going to be looking for as the, green flags on Aguilar. All right, time to fire. Because I just think that Aguilar, he's the guy that he's going to come out like a rabid dog in round 3 and try and make something happen crazy. And if you're really exhausted, that's when you're going to be vulnerable. And if you shoot a shitty takedown on a guillotine guy, they're like, money, like, here it is. Like, I've been waiting all day for this one. So that's the one thing you got to be really careful of. Think Julian Erosa, right? One shitty takedown attempt from Christian Rodrigues, and 3 seconds later, the fight is over. It's like, you just don't want to be messing with a guy who spends his whole life looking for this front headlock choke, And I do think that Jesus Aguilar, he's got one gimmicky move, but he's going to sell out and go for it. If you got the MGM or whatever, and you could find exact method by guillotine, I would definitely look at that market for him because I do think that's a decent portion of his win equity. But unless you have anything to add, Rich, we can move on to the next one.
No, I'll just say that makes sense, man. And if people have got a Unibet account, you can bet the submission or KO or whatever live, man, up until the start of round 3. Like I got Angela Hill against Pinheiro at fucking 30-1 after round 1. So yeah, if you got a Unibet account, take advantage.
I absolutely love it. All right, next up, my man, we got Walter Walker taking on Dante Maize. And I don't want to proclaim myself, the Walter Walker whisperer quite yet, but I was there for Lucas Bresky to upset him in his first fight, and I picked him to beat Tafa by sub or decision in his second fight. And, the Tafa brothers not being good has been a consistent theme on the show. We're validated once again with our most recent piece of evidence. But, you look back at that fight, it doesn't tell me that, now Walter Walker's turned a corner. He's a great fighter. It tells me that Junior Tafa is no bueno on the ground and, needs to improve his grappling in order to be a serviceable fighter. But what do we know about Dante Maize? He's a ranked heavyweight by default. This guy coming off of a loss, and they ranked him anyway because why not, right? He's still here. He's around. We cut a couple other guys from the ranking. So Dante Maize, welcome aboard. 4-5 in the UFC, not produced a winning record to this point. Lost to Shamil Gaziev, Rodrigo Nascimento. How about twice? Got submitted by him the first time, ran it back to a unanimous decision loss. Lost to Augusto Sakai, no longer with the promotion. And then you look at the Hamdi fight. Some of the worst fight IQ you'll ever see in the history of mixed martial arts. Guy flat backed himself against a Olympic wrestler. I couldn't believe what I was watching. If you rewatch it 50 times, you'll never understand why it happened. And so I look back at the Cyril Gane fight. Guys, I don't say this to be disrespectful. I say this to try and be honest and give you some perspective. I don't think that heel hook from Cyril Gane is submitting anybody at Renzo Gracie or Warwick. That's just the God's honest truth as I see it. I think that when you look at what that was a guy who was exhausted, who was in a position he wasn't super familiar with, and he just was like, get me out of here. Cyril Gane was like playing with it, right? He's like on top, like throwing ground and pound, just sits back to an ankle lock. Then he tried the same thing against Ngannou, and we saw how that turned out, right? I think that Don'Tale Mayes effectively ended Cyril Gane's run as an elite heavyweight. But in any case, you look back, the guy's no good. He lost to Alan Crowder. His wins, Mo Usman, Mitchell Stipe, Roque Martinez, Josh Parisian, the ghost of Andrei Arlovsky, all due respect to the legend, but that guy just is way, way, way past his prime. And then Shamil Gaziev, I mean, good fighter, right? Like, hats off, like, didn't get finished. Fair enough. Shamil, Big Mill Shamil coming off of a loss in his own right. I think he was a little bit more conservative in that fight. Just went out there to get a win by any means necessary, got the job done. Now I just look at this fight and I say, Walter Walker to me is the guy who is going to go out there and do more. And I'm a little bit surprised to look at the Tapology votes. Everybody thinks it's going to be a decision. I know that Don'Tale Mayes has been losing some decisions, but I'll just say this. With the amount of takedowns that Walter Walker gets, if Don'Tale Mayes is underneath this guy for 15 minutes, like I expect that he might be, this isn't Hamdi Abdelwahab, who doesn't know what he's doing on top position, holding on for dear life, taking rescue breaths. I honestly think Walter Walker is probably just going to pass his guard, disrespect him, and do what he wants. So, yeah, I think Walter Walker wins this one. I have no money on the fight. The Walker brothers are greater than the Tafa brothers, but they're not, elite. So definitely got to be careful with this one. How do you feel, Rich?
Yeah, we're in agreement, man. I won't waste time just echoing what you've said. Some things that are important, though, in this fight are Walker losing the weight, man. Like, he came into his debut at 265. In his second fight, he came in at 252. So it's someone who's taking it serious, someone who's losing the weight, putting on a bit of a muscle, and yeah, taking that career seriously, man, fucking doing the right things. So I like to see that from him. And then on the other side, you look at Maize, and if you go and look at what he's weighed in at in his last fight, the full 265 against Arlo, he was 262. Before that, 261, and before that, 255. So like 5 fights ago, he was coming in at 255. He was taking it serious. He was coming in under the heavyweight limit. Now he's a fat fuck coming in off the couch, back to 265, doesn't give a shit, got his big fucking jelly belly. And you're right, being underneath Walker for a round, I think he's going to give up. It's usually in round 3, like it was against Crowder and Shamil, where he doesn't bother getting back to his feet. He accepts bottom position. But I think against Walker at this stage in his career, it'd be round 2 when he just doesn't bother getting back up, content to be on his back. And it's up to Walker. Do you want to work your way to mount? Do you want to finish the fight and get a bonus? Put in a head and arm triangle choke? But I certainly think there'd be a finish from Walker. I just don't know whether it'd be the KO or the submission. But yeah, it could be round 2, could be round 3, but I think he gets it done quite easy, man.
Shout out to Glenbot. Gore MMA, Walker at a Russian camp will help with his wrestling, I think. Our boy Bogdan Guskov, who we talked about a long time ago on this show, I picked him to beat Volkan Ozdemir, which didn't work out, right? But then you look at how he's done since then. We got him at an underdog price in a few more opportunities, and he's done well. So, Bogdan Guskov and Walter Walker here to try and take over the UFC. I think that they're going to hit a rough road when they get to the higher end of the division. But right now, I do think they can clear out the lower end. And they're a little bit younger, a little more athletic. I think Gore MMA might be shooting something in their ass, a little bit of steroids, a little bit of whatever they need to get to the finish line here. Because you mentioned it, Bogdan Guskov, he looks great physically. Our guy, Walter Walker, went from looking not so good physically to a lot better physically. We know Johnny Walker looks like a freak physically. So a lot of things to consider. But I like the Walter Walker side as well. I think he gets it done on the ground. Next up, we got Vince Morales taking on Elijah Smith. Excuse me. Lord bless us and save us. We got Vince Morales 16-8, 3-6 in the UFC, taking on Elijah Smith, the debutante 7-1. Elijah Smith favored in this fight. I'll give my opinion on this one first, Rich. I hate that the line has come down already because I would have been on the Vince Morales side at 2-1. I still might be on the Vince Morales side at plus 155. I just look at this fight and I say to myself, you got a guy who's probably got 5 to 7 UFC level wins on the Vince Morales side against a guy who's got 0 UFC level wins on the Elijah Smith side. No disrespect. And then Vince Morales, when you look at his losses, he's been extremely, extremely difficult to finish. The one guy who puts him away is like a low kick specialist, goes out there and just shuts down his calf. Tough sledding, right? Other than that, I feel like this is a really winnable fight for Vince Morales. Number one, Elijah Smith got knocked out by Reyes Cortez. Not many men could say that. And Reyes Cortez is a decent fighter, but I think I bet against him on Contender Series multiple times. And when you look at the guy, solid enough, but just it didn't have like those breakout skills, didn't push over the hump. And those other guys who were better athletes had more intangibles. They were going to go out there and just beat him because he could push for 7 minutes great, and then the other guys would take over a little bit late. In that fight, he pushed too far for Elijah, right? Elijah got finished later on in that fight. He kind of slowed down. He was getting clipped. He was getting hurt. And I think that this is going to be Vince Morales going out there and showing this kid what time it is. Because if you look at Vince Morales, he's beating Teruto Ishihara. He's beating Hunter Azure in a long, extended fight. He's going out there fighting tough guys all around the world and earned his way back to the UFC after a bunch of losses. Not easy to do, but you look at the guys he's lost to. Solid. A bunch of solid competitors, mostly guys that have stuck around the organization. So I think that this guy, Vince Morales, is ready to come with a vengeance, and I wouldn't be surprised if he knocked out Elijah Smith. So Elijah Smith, the one other thing I'll mention here, 22 years of age. It's remarkable he made it to the UFC, and my hat's off to him, right? He's a younger man than I am. God bless him. He's doing great things. So it's nothing to disrespect or disparage him. He could go out there and have a great performance. I'll take my hat off to him. But when you just look at the body of work, hasn't proven it. And when I know things about men physically, they develop till the age of 25. And this guy's not even done with his physical development. They got him in the UFC. This isn't Raul Rosas Jr., where they're giving him guys that aren't super experienced in the UFC. They're giving him guys that have been around. They're giving him tough guys. And just a different ball game, right? And for me, Vince Morales, super seasoned vet. And at plus 155, he's the click for me. I think it's a pick 'em worst case scenario. What about you?
Yeah, I gave you three favorites, and now you get an underdog. Morales is going to win and fuck him up. I looked at this fight extensively. And yeah, something that I've been incorporating more into capping is capping the person, and not just the fight itself. And I went and watched some interviews and stuff. James Lynch did some interviews with these guys. And I think Smith's a fraud, man. I think he's like half in this. I put him in the same category as like a Talbot, where it's cool to say you're an MMA fighter. He does some streaming in his spare time. And the guy's young. I'm not really up on his gym either. And when he speaks, I just see a phony, man. These two guys have sparred together. Smith was the one to then text Morales and say, the soft stuff of all, like, we're mates. I had to take this fight. I hope you understand, bud. Best of luck and all that shit. I don't like to see that weak mentality. This is your career. If you're taking it serious, it's like, fuck everyone. Everyone's a stepping stone. You shouldn't be texting your opponent before the fight saying, apologizing for accepting it. So, yeah, I don't like to see stuff like that. In terms of the fighting, when he fought Reyes, I give him a pass, man. Reyes was like 30 at the time, and Smith was like 20, something like that. It was a big step up in competition. And yeah, he showed me everything in that fight. He quit after round one when he was spamming his kicks and his punches like he does his low kicks. He gave up, man. He was just skirting the outside of the cage, waiting for Reyes. He basically said, come and fucking finish me, man. He was skirting the outside, didn't want to know. His cardio was failing him like it did in his Dana White Contender Series fight. I think this guy is breakable. I think somebody with the experience like Vince can definitely do that. A wealth of experience. Yeah, he's taken some L's, but he's got some good wins on his record as well. They have been close. There's a Harvey fight, the fight against Johns. They were close wins. Even the one against Lopez when he lost, that arguably could have gone to him as well. He's not a good wrestler either, Smith. He takes people down, but he can't hold them down. They always get back to their feet like the guy on Dana White Contender Series did. And I don't even rate that guy with the face tats. I think he's a striker, a brawler type guy, like a bar fighter. And he really should have subbed him and took him down if he had anything about him, but he wasn't able to do it. yeah, if he wants to shoot on Vince in round 2 or 3 when he's getting tired and he wants to just secure the takedown because he doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he gets subbed. If he wants to stay on the feet and skirt the outside of the cage like he did against Reyes, he's going to get TKO'd. So it's up to him. But either way, some people have fucking seen what I've seen. They've smashed the line. He's gone from plus 200 to plus 150. I still think there's plenty of value there. I just think it opened up at a stupid line. So I'd still take him at 150. And I think because they've worked together, and from what I can deduce from the interview that Smith gave, he's going to hit the calf kicks. You know, he talks about watching tape. If you watch tape on Morales, you know that he's susceptible to the calf kicks. And he does that anyway, Smith. So he's going to go back to what he knows. He's going to calf kick him. He's going to try and hit some wrestling on him. And yeah, I think it's going to be to his detriment. So I like Vince a lot, and I think he likely finishes him in round 2 or 3.
You know, looking at this fight, one thing that stands out, you know, stats aren't everything, but one thing to look at, off that Contender Series fight, 43% defense, 41% accuracy for Elijah Smith. That's just not going to crack it at the UFC level. So if you can improve that, maybe it was just one time, went to war, Dana White Contender Series, but it's like, again, you got to show me that for me to believe that. I thought that Aaron Tao was the money line side when he fought Elijah Smith, and he outlanded him by one significant strike. He gave up 5 takedowns at 2 minutes of 46 seconds of control time. You know, he did take the worst of it on the feet. So, you know, he a deserved loss, but he went out there and competed very hard. It was not an easy fight for Elijah Smith. So for me, this just seems like another huge step up for somebody. And, you know, when you look at some of these guys, Cody Steele, he had a background in another martial art that gave me some confidence that he had a position of advantage. And even that didn't work out. I don't know what position of advantage I would give to, you know, Elijah Smith coming in. He's the better kicker, you know, that would be about what I'd give him. And, you know, probably a bit better of a wrestler, but I think Vince Morales is going to compete in the wrestling at this stage of his career. All right, next up, we got Julia Avila taking on Jacqueline Cavalcanti. And let's go ahead and get the Tapology running. We have just been going us on the screen, but let's pop it into high gear. We got Julia Avila and Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Rich, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Fuck me, man. I got nothing nice to say about Avila, man. I watched her interview again with James Lynch, just red flag after red flag. She said she's coming back too soon, but yeah, she didn't even fucking preference that with anything else. She just said, yeah, I'm coming back too soon, and then just kind of like just left it. She looked like she was going to cry 2 minutes in when she was talking about, you know, what she's been up to and shit. She's had 2 fights in the last 4 years. Her knees are fucked. Her body's letting her down. I think she's in a position where, you know, she's still got the mindset, but her body isn't there, and she's just trying to push through. And, you know, I really think that she thinks this is going to be some fucking Rocky moment where she wins the fight and, you know, everyone like raises her up on the shoulders and like, you did it. You come back from adversity. You know, you're the shit. Well done. You know, you're a super mom, you know, but it ain't happening. She's going to get finished, in my opinion. I think, you know, her whole game was being gritty, leaning on people, making it dirty. And I just don't think that Cavalcanti is going to be there. She's got good lateral movement. She's going to skirt the outside of the cage and point fight. And then I think in round 2, 3, it's literally going to be a situation where Avila might as well just go to the center of the cage and tap, man. I think her knees are going to start bothering her. I think the fact that she's had loads of time off is going to bother her. The fact that she's training in her own fucking gym with literally kids, man. I was going to post a picture of it and say iron sharpens iron just to be fucking funny and ironic, which is literally training with kids, fucking kids who look like 15, nobodies, man. She's not training properly. Her knees are gone, yada, yada. I think she's fucked there, man, in the line. Minus 500, it opened at like, well, it didn't open at one point. It was like minus 350. I wish I had jumped on it, man. I don't even like betting over a minus 200, but I would have bet her. I would have faded her in this spot at that price. So yeah, the line is wide as fuck, minus 500 for Cavalcanti, but it's fucking justified, man. And I think she finishes Avila and she retires.
I hate to agree with you, but I agree with you. I used to think highly of Julia Avila because she was really aggressive. And in WMMA, like that'll take you a long way. If you really want to go out there, get after people, throw hands, compete, those are all winning attributes as far as I'm concerned. But I just don't know that she has it anymore. And I bet Miesha Tate at plus money against her. Miesha is obviously a different challenge. Cavalcanti's been having a bunch of close fights, but she's also been fighting people that are a little bit more, age appropriate, I believe. Let me go up and pull up Cavalcanti's record to be fair here. So Josiane Nunes, she beat Zara Farron via unanimous decision. That was the old woman fight. Josiane Nunes, Nora Cornole, those are both a little bit more towards the age contemporary status. So let's look at Nora Cornole, actually. I don't know her age off the top
And
of my head.
where's she been fighting as well, man? They've been sending her to France, and now she gets to fight in Vegas, and she's at Syndicate. It's a home turf for her, man, this time.
Yeah, she fought Nunes, who's also, in my opinion, a much more dangerous fighter in Vegas before. So do I feel, like it's a stone cold lock? I never feel that way in WMMA, especially somebody coming off 2 split decisions. But do I think there could be upside on the finish because she's coming off 3 decision wins in the UFC? I do. Because I think that Julia Avila slowed down really badly against Miesha Tate. If you look at Miesha Tate's fights, I had been fading Miesha Tate at plus money because I thought that she looked pretty old coming back from her, retirement. And to have in this spot, a woman like Julia Avila slow down against Miesha Tate, that's one thing. That's a different kind of pace. I think that in this kind of fight, maybe she doesn't slow down, but to get, let's look at the price. Cavalcanti inside the distance plus 350. That seems like a playable line for me. So yeah, I'll probably be there if I could get something that good or better on domestic prices. But we're early in the week. A lot of these props haven't fully come out yet, so we won't mush anything else further. But just in terms of what I'm looking at, I think that's the way to get upside on this fight. Minus 500 type of money line. When it could go to a split decision and feel gross if they rob you. I don't want that. However, the upside on the finish when a woman is coming in, like you said, Rich, saying, I don't, not the right preparation. I'm coming back too early. And she's also up there in age, had a bunch of time out. Doesn't seem like bullish signals for me at all.
Was that Bet Online?
Bet Online opened minus 700 on Cavalcanti, then dropped all the way to minus 325. And then they've started to come back up. So certainly some money has come in on Avila. I've seen a bunch of people on Twitter and elsewhere on Avila. She has been favored in a lot of her UFC fights. So I definitely see what people are coming with. I don't think she's the same competitor and same athlete that she used to be. She's only 36, but people age differently. And I think that Julia Avila is a little bit past her prime. I used to really like her game, but I just don't know that she's there anymore.
Sorry, I meant the ITD. You said it was plus 350. Is that Bet Online?
Yes. Sorry.
That was like 400 before we did this podcast, like an hour ago.
Wow. So it must have got cracked. Let me see. It was plus 500 a few days ago, then plus 415, now down to plus 350. So yeah, it's been taking steam.
Yeah, well, I'll say it, bro. Whoever's fucking betting Avila needs to get their head checked out. It is a lock. She's gonna lose. Whether it be finish, who knows? It's women's MMA, but she checked out in that fight with Tate as well. That choke wasn't even in the rear naked. It was right at the beginning of round 3. She got took down straight away, and literally she put her hands on the fucking mat, gave up the choke, and insta-tapped, man. It was funny in the corner, too, between the rounds, before round 3 started. Her coach was like, it was probably her fucking brother or something. It was like, the game plan's out the window. I want you to fucking do this. He's trying to do the Teddy Atlas speech, fucking, we're firemen. But yeah, it didn't fucking go through, man. She was dejected. She was done. She was looking for a way out, and she was happy to tap, man. So hopefully Cavalcanti, she wants a bonus and she won't fuck about, and she puts the pressure on and gets a finish. So yeah.
Yeah, last time out I had Miesha Tate plus 135 against Avila. Those were the days. Those were the days. I wish we could get those plus money prices to fade again. But I just retweeted my explanation for why I faded her. And it talks about the fact that she fought really low-level competition in her wins and in her losses in the early run in her UFC career. So the division is still not good, but now it's a little bit more athletic. So I just think she's not really there anymore. Next up, we got the black belt hunter Rodolfo Vieira taking on Andre Petroski. For me, this is, the right guy is favored, but I don't feel like there's significant value on the line. Minus 215 price tag for Rodolfo Vieira. He is a guy that's gone out there and laid an egg before against Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy proven to be one of the top guys in the division, so no skin off your nose there. But you look back, and Adolfo also lost to Action Man Chris Curtis, a guy that's very difficult to take down. However, it does show a little bit of his limitations against some of the upper echelon guys. So now you look at this Andre Petroski fight. For me, this feels winnable. Andre Petroski is gassy. I think that Rodolfo Vieira is less gassy than Andre Petroski. I think that when you look at Rodolfo, he's tougher, he's grittier, he wants to win more. And I think that when you look at Andre, he's happy to go out there and compete hard for a certain amount of time. And if you really push him, if you offer sustained resistance, if you show yourself to not be afraid and not care about his game and not respect what he's doing, you can definitely win the fight. So I just think that we've seen it a number of times with Petroski. We've seen it in ways that are crazy and like almost never before seen in the UFC, like falling into somebody's hip and hurting yourself, kind of unbelievable. The guy gets hurt a decent amount on the feet, there to get stung. Somebody had said to me, what happens if Rodolfo Vieira's wrestling gets shut down here? I was like, I think he beats him up. Yeah, I think he's going to jab his face off. I just think that Petroski is a very stiff and plodding guy. I think he throws everything into every strike. I think he's a very nervous and awkward striker. And I think that Rodolfo has gotten a little bit more comfortable over time, throwing that jab, leaning on that, using his wrestling pressure. And honestly, if they get into 10 wrestling exchanges with no takedowns, I think Rodolfo comes out better than Petroski in terms of the cardiovascular capacity. And I think that he can just make this guy suffer. So they don't call him the black belt hunter for no reason. Petroski's a black belt. There's levels to being a black belt. This guy just lost a grappling match to Pat Downey, getting thrown every which way but loose at the end of that match, got out wrestled there. You see that this guy Petroski, whether it's Brian Battle on The Ultimate Fighter or, these other guys in the UFC, if you really push him, if you make him work, if you go hard against him, he does not like it. He does not want to be in those fights. And I think that Rodolfo Vieira, I just trust his process more. I trust his game more, and I think he's the better fighter. So give me Rodolfo Vieira to win this one. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, same. I think that Vieira round 2, which will probably be around plus 400, and then round 3, which will probably be around 650. I think they're good looks in this one because it could be a KO or a sub. But Petroski's fraudulent, in my opinion. I haven't forgot his fights with Gilmore or the Chinese guy. He had some hairy moments. Yeah, he had some hairy moments in those fights, man. Even his latest competition where he's fighting Budka and he's fighting Fremd, they offered little resistance. Budka came in overweight and, he was just lamb for the slaughter, man. Didn't try to get back up. So, yeah, he's fighting a different animal now in Vieira. Still on all the juice in the world. Vieira, as always, looking good per Instagram, never been KO'd. He does slow down a little bit, but he's still competent. When he slows down, he's still there. He's still serviceable. Way more dog in him, man, and that's what it comes down to. So I like Vieira, and I think round 2 or 3 is a good way to attack it.
All right, we see this one the same way. The other thing is, if you just look at Petroski, he does nothing, right? Like if you just look at his style, he did nothing to Josh Fremd except hold him down and just lay on top of him. And again, hats off to him. It was a win, but I just don't think the UFC likes that style. So to put it on the main card, for me, that tells me they want to position Rodolfo Vieira to get a chance at a win. And whether he goes out there and does it, that's on him. But I think that he's going to get the win. So ultimately, I like Rodolfo, and that's that. Next up, we got Edmund, the Golden Boy Shahbazian, taking on Dylan, the Mindless Hulk Budka. And I had said after Dylan Budka's last fight, Dylan Budka should never fight in the UFC again because he's not very good at fighting. And he also missed weight, I believe, for that contest. However, 25 years of age. And the one thing I could tell you about Dylan Budka, is there have been fights before where he's taken an absolute shellacking and just kept the fight going and made it a really greasy situation for the other guy because he's like, what do I have to do to kill you? I tried to take you down. I tried to beat you up. I punched you in the head a bunch of times. The guy just keeps going, right? And against Cesar Almeida, we've now seen Cesar Almeida is a hitter. You know, he wasn't the biggest knockout artist in kickboxing, but he did knock some people out. And since coming to mixed martial arts, it's 4-ounce gloves. He's been doing a great job of connecting with people, and when they get hit, they die. So I think that Cesar Almeida, he fought Lucas Fernandez or whoever I think it was on Contender Series, and that guy had a hell of a chin, also forced him to grapple a lot during that fight, had a decent, well-rounded skill set. Budka tried to make him grapple, took a bunch of elbows to the head, and went down. When I think about this fight, like the number one result that comes to my mind is Edmen Shahbazian KO1. Like the guy is faster, more experienced, better kicker, better striker, faster. Like he's going to have some significant advantages on the feet early in this fight. But Budka, in my opinion, is going to be scared of striking with him. He's going to try and wrestle him like his life depends on it. He's probably going to get horsed around for at least 4 minutes of this fight because Edmen is a big physical middleweight who I do think is actually stronger than Budka. But if Budka is able to make him work, he's going to win the fight, in my opinion, because Budka, for all of his faults, has good cardio, and Edmen Shahbazian does not. And the ABCs, they always bet on cardio. So to see 3-1 on a guy who I thought, Edmen Shahbazian was going to kill Derek Brunson. And when he lost that fight, I realized who he was. I was like, oh, okay. He doesn't have it against guys that really want to switch up phases, keep it going, work hard for the full fight. He doesn't want to do it because Derek Brunson has been knocked out before. But if you don't get the show closed, he's going to make you wrestle. He's going to make you switch a couple positions. He's going to go ahead and try and take you down. He's going to try and put pressure on you. And Edmen didn't like any of that. So I look at Edmen as a guy that if you can keep pressure on him, if you could survive an early onslaught, you're going to win. And I had said that about Jack Hermanson, and I thought Jack was live to finish him in rounds 2 and 3. He almost got it done. We've seen it a million times with Edmen. The guy just falls apart in sustained fights under pressure. So to see him as a huge favorite, it always makes sense pre-fight because in the first round, he's a big favorite against most guys. But as fights get extended, he gets exposed. And I just think that Dylan Budka, he's fighting for his job. I don't think there's any two ways about that, right? Coming off 2 stinker fights, 2 bad losses, I don't think they're going to give him a 4th run out if he gets killed in the first round in this one. But if he goes out there and I know what you're saying, Gold Caps. He did look gassed versus Almeida, but I also think that's because he got his ass beat in that fight. I think when you look back, the Bakoev fight, Bakoev looked very good in his UFC debut. And that was a fight that we saw Dylan Budka, go 5 rounds, fight hard, keep pushing. And Edmen Shahbazian just doesn't seem built like that. So let's see how it goes. But it's the battle of the 2 pastiest white guys in the division. What do you think about this one, Rich?
I think Budka's a complete bum, and Edmen's going to sub him.
You're on mute or something.
Oh, shit. Hello. Still, can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Can everybody else hear Rich? Can you guys say in the chat?
Yeah, I haven't done anything different, man.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you. I literally don't know what happened, but now I can hear you. So please.
Yeah, so I think Budka's shit. Bum amateur record, missed weight in his last fight. It does look like he's working this time around, so I don't think he's going to miss weight. But yeah, Edmen's going to sub him, man. It'll be a guillotine or a rear naked choke, most likely. I just don't think that Budka's got the skill set like the other people who have beat Shahbazian previously. He's not good at anything, man. He's an okay wrestler, I guess. But you've seen in that Almeida fight, man, he was desperate for it, And I think if he does the same thing he did in the Almeida fight, he's going to leave his head on the outside and he's going to get guillotined. People forget Edmen is decent at jiu-jitsu. Cashed him before. Can't even remember the fight now. Was it Jack Marshman? It might be Jack Marshman. But yeah.
I think so. I think that's his only UFC sub.
Yeah. So I'm going back to it. Can't play the money line, to be honest. Not my style. He hit GM3 and then went for the kill. Gassed is what it is. But like I said, these people who have beaten him have got a skill set somewhere. GM, obviously good at jiu-jitsu. Budka, a master of nothing. So yeah, Edmen gets back in the win column and Budka goes back to doing whatever the fuck he was before he got here. So yeah, Edmen sub and I love it, man. Probably my favorite prop.
Yeah, I do think Budka is bad. For everybody in the chat that's saying that, I agree. I don't think he's a very good fighter, but I do think he's largely been a durable fighter throughout his career. So let's see how this one shakes out. I think that this is a fight where we're going to see that tested. Anybody who fights Edmund Shahbazian is going to be tested. My guy, Gerald Mearshart, he was tested early, right? But if you can survive that, you could definitely make this guy work. And I will say, he was priced as a heavy favorite against Derek Brunson when he lost. He was priced as a heavy favorite against Gerald Mearshart when he lost. So something to keep in mind, right? He was an underdog in a few of those fights that he lost, so you don't want to hold that against him too much. Losing to Derek Brunson, Chakra Manson, Nasruddin Imavov, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, Gerald Mearshart. None of those are bad fighters, but it's the way it's happening. It's the pattern-based losses. It's the fact that his cardio effing sucks, right? So I do think Dylan Budka not going to be a good bet. Live could be a very good bet, right? He's plus 600, 750 after one round of taking a shellacking, and you see Edmund in cardiac arrest. I would live with the result at that point, knowing that he survived the first round. But if I don't know that he survived the first round, he's very live to get finished in the first here. So that's the way I'd look to play this fight, either Edmund early or Dylan Budka live. All right, next up, man. We got Jose Delgado somehow in a main card fight taking on Connor Matthews. These two guys don't deserve to be here on the main card. No disrespect to either one of them. The reason I think this fight is here is because you got two guys that might go out there and put on an entertaining scrap. And I think that the UFC views them as both live to go get finished. So they're like, hey, go car crash each other. Somebody finish somebody. Give us a highlight reel and let's roll off into the next one. And as far as I'm concerned, Jose Delgado is much more likely to put our friend Connor Matthews on the highlight reel, unfortunately. 32 years of age for the controller, Connor Matthews, 7-2, and he got finished by Dennis Bazooka in his last performance in the UFC. Struggled on the Contender Series as well. I think he was 1-1 in Contender Series appearances. So how do you feel about this one, Rich?
Yeah, Delgado's mush of the week, man. Don't like him. Think he sucks. Think he's overrated. Don't think he's worthy of the price. I like Matthews, and you're right, man. That was a good way to put it. It's a fucking car crash, and either man could get finished, but I'm putting my money on Matthews to finish Delgado. Well, it could be a decision, so I won't go that far, actually. It could be a decision, but most likely this does end in the distance. I don't like what I see from Delgado. I think he's a front runner. 3 fights ago, he was fighting people with ineligible records. If you go check his Tapology, the guy had fake fights on his record. It's his UFC debut. I don't like that for him. It's on the main card. I don't like that for him. Matthews has already had a UFC fight, albeit lost. He spams fucking everything, man. Kicks, no rhyme or reason with anything that he does. He throws these combinations. Delgado looking to get you out there early. He did exactly the same thing on the Dana White Contender Series fight and wasn't able to do it in round 1. And I just seen a glimpse of it, man, in like the end of round 1 on the Dana White Contender Series fight. And then, a little bit in round 2 as well, where I don't know, he was getting tagged, man, and I didn't like his reactions. He shelled up a little bit on the floor at the end of round 1 also, before the bell went. And I just think that there's some fraudulent vibes from him. He had a fight back in the day against a guy called McCate, I think his name is, and he got out-wrestled. Got wrestle fucked, actually, real bad, taken down in each round, 30-27. And I just don't think he's improved much from that fight. I just think he's had the benefit of not fighting good people. I'm not saying that Matthews is anything special, but at the line, I have to take him. He's big for the weight class. He has power in his hands. He has a bunch of submission victories. He is a bit of a front runner. They have been in round 1. He's had better experience, in my opinion. He's fought in the UFC before, so he has these plus things. He's from a decent camp as well, New England Cartel. Delgado as well is from a good camp, the MMA Lab. So, it's a good fight, man. And I just think that Matthews is the more composed of the two. He takes his time, more technical, good counter striker as well, which will play into the hands of Delgado's reckless, reckless game. So yeah, Matthews, man, bet.
All right. Looking back at my analysis from the Contender series, I thought Ernie Juarez was a live underdog. I thought that Jose Delgado would be, very capable of knocking him out. I shouted out the KO at plus 2XX, but I just thought that it was kind of a car crash fight. And you mentioned Ernie was landing a little bit. He's not a great fighter, but he's got tight enough boxing and he's a willing exchanger, and he went out there and threw a little bit with him. The problem that I had with Delgado is that I thought his grappling looked pretty suspect on the regional scene. I cited the Chris Makate fight, which I'll go back and rewatch to see exactly what I didn't like about that fight. But ultimately, the controller, Connor Matthews, I think he could have a path on the ground here if he's smart, if he's able to take the guy down, hold him down on the mat. But you do have a long guy, kind of awkward, I feel like, sometimes for guys that are a little bit smaller, unless they're really clean operators on top, to pass and navigate when you've got a long-limbed guy like that. So we've got to see some depth of skill from Connor Matthews here on the tape in order for me to feel comfortable thinking he's going to pass the guard. But if he's able to do that, then he's going to put himself in the driver's seat. I think if this fight's just a striking fight, it's probably going to be really tough for Matthews. He threw, I think, 80 significant strikes in his peak fight against Jair Farias, a guy I did not think was extremely high level. Through the middle of the second round, Jose Delgado had landed a knockdown, 3 takedowns, and 40 significant strikes against Ernie Juarez. So I do think that he's got a pretty decent work rate. I would not be surprised if he's ahead on volume on Connor Matthews if this fight just stays at distance for the full 15 minutes. But I think Connor Matthews has a path to go out there and compete, has been in the UFC under those bright lights already. So let's see how this fight shakes out. Evaluating Dennis Bazooka is difficult because to get finished by him, I don't think is a good look. Dennis does seem like he maybe turned a corner physically, if you know what I mean. Seems like he looks like he's in better shape for his recent fights. He fought Jamal Emmers and these other guys that have been around for a little while and they have some experience. Sean Woodson, who's had a very solid run in the UFC. So I think that we maybe have to grade a little bit on a curve and until we get a full impression of Connor Matthews. The other thing is the guy he lost to, I'm drawing a blank on the kid's name, Francis Marshall, not a bad fighter, and beat Dennis Bazooka, by the way, as well. So, I think that you see that maybe the level between these guys isn't as crazy big a gap as people think.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was saying with Bonfim and Dalby when Dalby beat Bonfim as the big favorite as well. It's like I'm not putting so much stock into Matthews. I'm putting stock into Delgado falling apart on himself, making his debut. His style is to be reckless and just to come out fucking guns blazing. And I think that would be to his detriment here. Who knows, man? Maybe he gets the jitters and he fucking, cardio dumps and Matthews just fucking takes the back, subs him because he has got suspect grappling. And I say that, but he's also half decent with those fucking front chokes. He does have a metric advantage in the reach. I'm trying to look here. Yeah, he's got a metric advantage in the reach as well as the height. So there is a world where Delgado could sub him with a choke or something on an entry. But I don't know. I just, I guess I'm counting on him to fall apart a little bit and Matthews' experience to, pay dividends in this one.
Alrighty, there you have it. Next up, man, we got Ismail Bonfim taking on Nazim Sakov. I think that this is an interesting fight, man. I think this is going to be a banger. I was basically told in a Twitter Spaces by somebody that had trained with Nazim a long time ago. Maybe the guy was just tooting his own horn, and he was like, "Oh, this guy on the ground, I was subbing him so easy. I was moving around positions on him." So I basically had heard like this guy is just no good on the mat, and that has looked to be false since he's gotten to the UFC, right? Like the guy has just been performing fine in the grappling department since he got to the UFC. Terrence McKinney, you could say anything you want about the guy. He's 8-2 career to the sub. The guy is not an easy guy to out-grapple summarily. He got out-grappled in that fight eventually by Nazim. Stayed in the fight, defended himself. Look at Fares Ziam, how good he's performed in his recent fights. That guy, got submitted very quickly and easily by Terrence McKinney. So, you gotta, look at these on a case-by-case basis. And I see Nazim as a guy who clearly stays in the gym, has made big improvements, a guy that really wants it, works really hard. If you look at these guys' social media, I know you like to do that, Rich. Both these guys look like they're having hard camps. The Bonfims, they're both on this card. They're putting in the work together, right? That seems obvious and apparent. But then on the other side, Nazim Sadikov every day posting in the top 15 soon. I will be in the top 15. Like, this guy is man on a mission right now, locked in. Got a great team around him, got a great gym around him, got great guys, great talent around him. We saw Dennis Bazooka, a guy that was kind of written off, finally broke through in the UFC in his own right. So you see that these guys, they're not as good as a Merab, as an Aldrin. Not everybody's going to be a champion, a next best guy. But could Nazim, continue to move forward and make these improvements? I do think that's possible. He's 30, though. He needs to go right now. That's why he's saying top 15 right now, top 15 this year, because he doesn't want to age out of his prime. Right now is his time to go. On the other side, you've got a 29-year-old Bonfim who's got a ton of professional experience. The guy was getting submitted by Renato Moicano back in 2014. The guy's been at this game for a long time. He understands the ins and outs. I thought that he was going to be tested on the Contender Series. I forget the gentleman's name, Narduiev or something like this, Nabisov, something like this. So no disrespect to that gentleman. If I had it in front of me, I'd pull it up. But the guy went out there and stuffed all his takedowns, kept it on the feet, beat him up. I was impressed by that. I was like, man, you know what? Bonfim, not so bad, right? Everybody was talking about the other guy as like the great Bonfim. And I was like, man, this guy, his younger brother, not so bad. Or his little brother, whatever, the 155er, he goes out there. He's got some real craft on the feet. Here's the problem, though. I think he's an ego fighter, Rich. What I mean by that is some guys, they're really good, but their ego gets in the way of their success. Luke Rockhold, great example of this, right? Maybe the most prolific example there's ever been. He had great skills, could have been an all-time middleweight. Went out there with his hands down, chin up, talking shit, and he got fucking flatlined by Michael Bisping. And that was like the defining moment of his career, is him getting sent to the absolute shadow realm by a guy who didn't knock out many people with their hands because he was talking shit with his hands down to a guy fighting on 2 weeks' notice, and he got floored. And if you look at Ismail Bonfim, he's a minus 300 favorite against Benoit Saint-Denis. And I had bet him as an underdog against Terrence McKinney, picked him by round 2 knockout. I cashed that prop as well, the KO2. I was very happy with that performance. But I was like, no way should he be minus 300 against Benoit Saint-Denis, because this guy's a marauder. I was like, these two guys are going to smash into each other and something's going to fall apart. And if you look at that fight, he gets hit with a huge body kick from Benoit Saint-Denis like 8 seconds into the fight. And he calls him on for more. And then Benoit Saint-Denis proceeds to kick him with no blocks in place about 16 times in the side. And then he falls over, gets taken down twice, gets submitted, and the fight is over. That's the entire fight. Like, he just absorbed a million body kicks, could not break the rhythm, and he let his ego get him destroyed, right? So now he's coming off a win, and people are starting to feel good about him again. And I think his grappling is still suspect. The guys he lost to, it was all fair play. Those guys back in 2014 and whatever. But then the Benoit Saint-Denis loss, it's not bad because you lost to Benoit Saint-Denis. It's how you lost. It's the way you lost. He broke. He got broken on the feet. He got taken down. He got broken on the ground. It was that simple for me. So Nazim Sadikov, what did he do against Terrence McKinney? Was he better at grappling? Absolutely no, he was not. Right? In the first round, he was in defensive mode. He broke him. He waited for him to get tired, then said, do you still want to keep playing? He said, no, I don't. Thank you anyways. I'll take the check. Get me out of here. And we've seen Bonfim do the same thing. So when you see it at an underdog price, I'm like, count me in on a Bonfim, brother, because they're going to go out there, give you explosive violence. They know how to fight in both phases. They can go on the ground. They can go on the feet. They can give you some offense. But when it comes down to it, when I want chalk, I want cardio, consistency, and confidence. I don't know if I know that I'm getting that from Bonfim. He was known for being the guy that can go out there, deliver a highlight reel knockout, do these things, and then it's back to a little bit more conservative game plan against Vince Michel of all people, because he didn't want to gas out. He didn't want to go out there and give it up to a guy who's older. So for me, I feel like at this point, Nazim Sadikov is not as good, not as skilled, but another candidate for a live bet, because the Bonfim brothers, when they get pushed, when they get into adversarial fights, I know that Nazim Sadikov will take a shellacking and keep coming forward trying to kill you. So I think he's way less skilled. He might just get out hustled to a decision here. He could get knocked the fuck out. But I think Nazim Sadikov will go out, with his shield or on it. He's going to go and try and put this guy in the ground for 3 straight rounds. So fun fight, man. How do you feel about this one, Rich?
Yeah, I think Nazim's the side, man. And I'd caution against waiting to go live because he starts fast. And yeah, like it could be over in round 1, man. He's not a guy who waits. Yeah, some things I got in my notes, man. So Bonfim, he's had 3 fights, 2 in Rio, which he won. 1 was in Vegas that he lost back in Vegas. I've always disliked Syndicate MMA and John Wood. I think he's a shit coach. I still maintain he's a shit coach. And I think he's just fortunate with his location, the fact he's in Vegas and all these people are flooding to him now. He fucking hit gold with Marab. But Marab was already the product that he was before he got to Syndicate. So, yeah, I don't give John Wood any props on that. But, yeah, another Syndicate fighter, Sadikov, I think that bodes well. Like I just said, when Bonfim comes out of Brazil and he flies to Vegas, I don't think that's good for him. He's missed weight before, so we'll see what happens there. He really should have finished Vink Pachel in that fight, but he didn't. It went to decision. I think he's low volume. I think he's a counter striker. And yeah, I just think he's going to get overwhelmed here by Sadikov. So at plus money, it's an easy click based on those things. I think this is the lower of the 2 brothers, man. He's suspecting the grappling as well. I don't think that I play too much into this one. Nazim's okay on the ground, but I don't think Ismail's going to give up a sub or anything like that. I just think it's going to be a back and forth war, like you mentioned, where Bonfim breaks. He doesn't get the pretty fight he wants, where he can just sit on the outside and look to counter. The pace, the pressure is going to be too much for him. And yes, Sadikov is underdog, easy click. I think he likely knocks him out, probably round 1 or 2. Now you're on mute, bro.
I got you. We got to rep Brooklyn in the house. Nazim Sadikov. We got Brooklyn Biggie on the T-shirt, and we've got Nazim Sadikov from Brooklyn, New York. Stand up. East Coast coming to make another run. So I respect Ismail Bonfim. I do respect the Bonfim brothers as being really dangerous guys. I just think they're limited in terms of cardio, in terms of the way that they fight. They have 1 decision. So again, it's not counting them out in that kind of fight. But they like it pretty. They like it clean. They like it controlled. I don't think they want to be in a brawl. And I think that that's what they're being brought this weekend. So ultimately, I think that they're both a little bit vulnerable. Next up, and yeah, I had to talk my shit about New York. You know that. We have to, right? When we have our guys, hey, listen, who's going to run the bantamweight division if not for us? We got Patchy Mix. We got Aljamain Sterling. We got Merab Dvalishvili. Name a Title 1 at 135 that don't have a New York stamp of approval on it the last few years at bantamweight, all right? We run divisions in this great state. So let's put that on notice. Y'all must have forgot. They train in Vegas nowadays. They brought their New York roots, all right? Cortland Wrestling in the house. Everybody says every time, oh my God, I can't believe Aljamain Sterling's such a good wrestler. And we'll talk about that in this next fight with Yusuf Zalal, Calvin Kattar. But how about this? Aljamain Sterling, Division 3 in the what? In the great state of New York. Them New York boys will teach you how to wrestle how many times before y'all know what time it is. All right. Speaking of, next up, we got Calvin Kattar, Yusuf Zalal. Next up, by the way, Section 9 will teach you how to wrestle. Y'all look up Section 9. See what we've been doing lately in the great state of New York. A great state and a great section. So y'all must have forgot. But in any case, we've got Calvin Kattar, the Boston finisher, the known sworn enemy of the great state of New York. If y'all see what he did to my boy Shane Burgos, the pride of Section 9, Calvin Kattar's had it out for the great state of New York. He's gone after us. He's gone out and gotten knockouts over our guys. We don't like this guy. But I'm playing, of course. Calvin Kattar, much respect. Bet him hugely against Giga Chikadze. Bet him inside the distance. I don't know how Giga Chikadze survived 5 rounds of that. It was an absolute assault. He looked like the victim of a violent crime. God bless him. Yeah, the guy just stood in the fire, tough Georgian warrior. But Calvin Kattar has not looked the same since his knee injury, in my humble opinion. This is a guy who's been inactive. This is a guy who took a million significant strikes from Max Holloway. And this is a guy that in his last fight got so summarily out-grappled by Aljamain Sterling that he might never be on a pay-per-view again. Dana White probably watched that fight in the back and puked in his hands. And I think that looking at this matchup, this was like the UFC saying, let's make it even worse for Calvin. When I look at Calvin's career and all the things that have ever gone wrong for him, you can go back to that Renato Moicano fight, and Renato Moicano used speed, footwork, and just danced around him on the outside, touched him up, used his low kicks, and honestly rinsed Calvin Kattar in a striking fight. And when you look at that kind of matchup, you say to yourself, wow, that was in his prime. That was like the best Calvin Kattar was kind of just exposed by kicks and movement. And Youssef Zalal, kicks, movement, speed, youth, aggression, and all the jiu-jitsu upside as far as I'm concerned. So Calvin Kattar, for me, in his prime, would have been an interesting test for Youssef Zalal. And I'm not trying to say at 36 years of age, he's ancient or anything like that, but everybody ages differently. This guy's been in war after war. This guy has been in beatdown after beatdown type fight. I don't think he likes long wrestling exchanges. I don't think he likes drawn out fights. He was fortunate to win the Josh Emmett fight. I bet Josh Emmett, he was unfortunate, to lose that fight is what I meant to say. I bet Josh Emmett, I was fortunate to cash that, happy to get the win. But if you look back, that was, again, the peak of his career, the best that he could do. You look back at that fight, though. Was it a clear Calvin Kattar win? No, it was a very close fight. It was extremely close. He went out there and got hit with a bunch of bricks the whole time. And to survive the Max Holloway beating and the Josh Emmett beating, it does say great things about his durability. But it also tells me you can't do that forever. And when you get hit in the chin and hit in the chin and hit in the chin, you're begging to eventually get knocked out. I think Youssef Zalal at 14-1 to win this fight by knockout is surprising to me. I think the ITD is surprising to me, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I think the money line price has blown out. Do I think there's value on it? No. Do I think it's appropriate? Arguably. I would probably make it a little bit like minus 300, minus 230 personally in terms of how I view this conceptually, just because if Calvin Kattar rocks up the best version of himself, maybe he goes out there and makes it a war. I have said in the past, Youssef Zalal at his worst does fight close with people in decisions, does let people back into the fight, has a little too much fun out there. But I think at his best, Youssef Zalal has come back to the UFC a much more violent finisher, a much more intentional fighter with a better, cleaner process for winning MMA fights. And we've seen that translate to finishes in the regional scene. Then we've seen that translate to finishes in the UFC. Now that he's come back, he used to be a decision fighter for and against close fights. He could rally back on you in round 3 like he did against Ilya, like he did against Damon Blackshear, but he would give up the early rounds. He would kind of be lackadaisical. He doesn't look like that anymore. He looks intentional. He looks violent. He looks skilled. He looks fast. And I don't think Calvin Kattar looks like any of those things right now. So I think Youssef Zalal is going to come out there and whoop his ass. That's the way I see it. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I like it, man. I'm with it. It's funny, when I was glancing at this card last week, I was like, oh, shit, Zalal, Kattar plus 300. That could be a mush of the week. Moroccan Devil, I make him the Tasmanian Devil and just stick his head on top or something like that. But yeah, looking into it, I agree with what you said. I looked on Instagram as well, and Qatar, all he's doing is promoting fucking bookie stuff, trying to cash in. I don't like to see that. Doesn't seem to be training as much. Had injuries. There's not really much more I could add, man. You were pretty in depth. I'd just say that Zalal, since he's come back, he's fought Billy Q, who seems to be regressing as fuck. Look at his last performance. He finished Aaron's and he beat Shaw, who then retired. So this is probably a bit of a step up from those 3 people, but there's still things on the Qatar side that I don't like. He is 36 at this weight class. He is getting on a little bit. So I like Zalal. I don't think it'd be a submission. Maybe you could look at hitting the KO or decision double chance. Maybe that's a good look. I did that with Topuria last week, man. Topuria last week was plus 160 for the submission or decision. So yeah, that's a good way to maybe hit this one if you get a good line. But yeah, we're in agreement. Zalal wins.
There you have it. Well, we'll have you start us off on the main event of the evening. Jared the Killa Gorilla Cannonier taking on Gregory Robocop Rodrigues. 32-year-old Gregory Rodrigues taking on the 40-year-old in Jared Cannonier. Obviously, Cannonier, the more proven middleweight in terms of who he's fought, who he's beat. but on the decline, a little bit older, taking on a surging Gregory Rodrigues. He's been knocked out before, been on the ropes before, had a bunch of competitive fights, but great record in the UFC, all things considered, and a guy that's on the precipice of doing big things if he gets the win on Saturday. Rich, how do you see it going down?
Yeah, how time flies, man. And this is where we're at. Fucking Rodrigues in the main event against Cannonier. It's crazy. I couldn't even remember that Cannonier fought Barreto. Like, I had to go back and watch it. That just completely escaped my memory. I thought Imavov was his last fight. Yeah, I can't back Cannonier, man. The difference between him and Angie is I do see regression in his performances. He is getting hurt more than he was. He has had injuries. Every time I'm on Instagram or I see a reel from him, it's him in rehabilitation for his arm or something. So yeah, I think these wars, these big fights that he's been in against good competition are wearing on him. He is still live for a KO purely because Rodrigues gets hurt in every fight and his defense is lacking. He is a bit wild and throws caution to the wind standing. But I'm not 100 on this yet, but I think I like Rodrigues by submission. I think that's a good angle. He has been hitting the wrestling more in his fights. He did it against Leroy Duncan. He's got 5 rounds to do it this time. And yeah, kind of like Avila, man. I'm just not sure where Cannonier is in this stage of his career. So I'll roll the dice on, him breaking in rounds 3, 4. So yeah, that's the way I'm going to look at it. But I got to do more research. I've been a bit lazy on this bout, man, but I like Robocop and I don't mind the submission.
I'm seeing the submission right now is as low as plus 550. I have bet it at better prices every time in the UFC. So of course now it's going to hit at a terrible price. That's just the way it works. But yeah, I bet Robocop sub a number of times on money lines. I haven't lost yet on his fights. I had Petroski in that close split decision, plus 150. That one could have went the other way. And then I had Robocop against Jin Young Park. And in that fight, he just outlasted him on durability. He actually got hurt in that fight as well. So I think that there is a world in which Jared Cannonier just nukes him with power. If you look at the Hulk fight, right, the Fernandez fight, that was a fight where he was able to like roll with the shots pretty well, right? He was like moving. And then as he saw it, he just hit a great reactive counter and killed Rodrigues. And I don't see Cannonier doing anything like that, but he does hit hard as shit, right? So it's just like, I think that one time, if Jared Cannonier lines up a really big shot, he could kill him. But aside from that, I just don't see how Cannonier is going to win this fight. Could he go out there and throw more volume? Again, I suppose, but it would have to be like a throwback performance from Jared. He's been a lot more reserved. He went out there and threw 1,000,000 low kicks against Sean Strickland, and I don't think that he did that as much against his subsequent opponents. He's kind of drawn that back a little bit. And looking at the Imavov fight, looking at the Barajo fight, he's getting his head rattled back and forth in both of those fights really bad. And I do think that there's a chance Robocop could just dead him the same way. So in that regard, I would consider it kind of an even fight. And then I do think that the grappling upside is all with Robocop here. The thing that I just can't get beyond is that I do think Robocop is slightly less proven durability-wise than a guy like Cannonier. Because the guys that Cannonier's getting hurt by are all proven pretty elite. Jin Young Park, he's not really the most dangerous striker on the feet. He had him doing a little bit of the dance, right? He had him on the ropes. You look at some of these other guys, like, what's his name? Jordan Williams. Again, he was kind of busting up Ian Gary's face. I'm not saying he didn't have talent, but again, just kind of a loss that you wouldn't really think of in hindsight. And then the Hulk loss, Hulk was a UFC debutant. That's kind of one that you're expected to go get if you're Gregory Rodrigues, and he got cleaned up there. So I do think that big spot, big opportunity for Robocop. I think he's going to seize it, but I could see the ways that this could go wrong as well at a minus 200 type price tag. It is a step up in competition. And you have to think Jared Cannonier is fighting for, basically his career, right? Or certainly his contendership status, because if he loses another fight, his career is probably over. So yeah, great fight, great scrap, but ultimately I got to side with Robocop. I made, the caveats, but it's just the way it comes down to it, more past the victory. I think this guy's got good cardio for a marauder that goes out there and has these wild fights. He's put together pretty solid 15 minutes. Brad Tavares, guys, it's hard to put away. He's a very durable guy. He's a very savvy veteran. To go out there and put him away, I thought he was going to have to submit him. I thought he was going to have to break down Brad and then use his submission skills on top. And instead, he just beat him up, broke him. And Brad's hard to do that to, man. Duplessis did not finish Brad Tavares. So just keep that in mind. Like, this guy, Robocop, very, very good fighter and a guy that could be ready for prime time. The Obama of the division is coming for the presidency of middleweight. And I think that he's got a chance to do it. So hope and change for the middleweight division. It's Gregory, Obama Cop, Rodrigues. And I think he's going to get it done inside the distance, but fascinating middleweight fight. And I heard a couple of people in the chat, I was reading that they like the over and the goes to decision. God bless. Good luck with that. I would not be on that for this one. I'd have to see what the prices are, but both these guys are extremely violent finishers. I wouldn't be surprised to see either one of them end up on a highlight reel. And in terms of the jiu-jitsu edge, I do think Robocop is very, very good at jiu-jitsu and doesn't use it and makes suboptimal decisions in a lot of his fights. But if he ever chooses to leverage it, it's going to give him an opportunity to win. He even goes for like dumb positions like Suluev stretch and shit like that that's low percentage when he does use it. But like if he just went back, take rear naked choke, I feel like he could beat a lot of guys and make it look easier. So he just likes to fight. He's a actual fighter in his heart. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just Slava versus Nolan was like minus 400. Fight doesn't go. So I guess shit happens, man. When you expect it to be violence or whatever, often goes the other way, man.
Yeah, this is only minus 265 to end inside the distance. And it looks like the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. I don't really love that. I would have preferred a 3.5 or a 4.5, but alas, we'll call it there. Do you have anything else that you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to plug, anything you want to say, you can go ahead and tell the people, Rich.
Yeah, just as usual, you can get my bets and access to my Discord. There's a link on my Twitter for that. It's $12 a month. We chat shit, other sports as well on the Discord. And yeah, just let everybody know. Thanks for the people in the chat. We're all about love, peace, and prosperity on the show. Obviously, I'm not about that when I'm not on the show, but the show is what it is. And, that's separate from whatever the fuck I'm doing in my life. And we've reiterated this plenty of times. Liam doesn't endorse whatever I'm doing when I'm disparaging about fighters and the rest of it. Obviously, this yin and yang thing works for the hour that we do each week. And it is what it is, man. Me and Liam, we ain't going out to a disco together. We ain't breaking bread on Thanksgiving. We do the show together. It works. And yeah, long may it continue.
There you go. We banter. And I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you guys have more banter that you want to give, go ahead and do so in the comment section down below. We'll try and get to that. Peace, love, and chicken grease, as my guy Glenbot said. I love that. Peace, love, and positivity, however you want to say it. That's what I'm about. God bless you guys. Thank you all for the support. If you have, like I said, questions, comments, concerns, down in the chat below. Got a lot of wrestling this week, but I will get to the comments. So thank you all for the support. And until next time, come back next week and we're going to have all the same fun again. Enjoy UFC Vegas 102. We'll do it all next time. God bless you.